What's up, y'all? So I was just thinking about this rhetoric, whatever you want to call it, that kind of surrounds this billionaire slash, corporate, oligarchy situation we got going on. Slash, they talk about socialism. So it's kind of apparent that, we kind of have this, corporate dominated economy at this point. And so, like, if you want to, like, open a mom and pop shop, it ain't happening. You know what I mean? So it depends on, like, what, market you're in. But for the most part, most of these major markets are dominated. Here in America, we got Walmart, Amazon's taking over, It's a corporate oligarchy, They control so much. And, with that, like I said, if you want to open a mom and pop shop, it ain't going to happen. Secondarily, most people are dependent on these big corporations for employment, any source of income. And it's not quite a monopoly. I mean, it depends what market you're in, but they're like really kind of narrowed down to like a few like major players in some markets, and so it's already a situation where people are kind of like dependent on these big corporations and whatnot for employment, even, like, you know what I mean? It's already that situation. So the solution that a lot of people have proposed, one, what people have been doing is taxing these big corporations. Actually, a lot of these corporations aren't taxed, but individual wealth of like billionaires and stuff like that has been taxed. And even then, a lot of those billionaires, they're really good at, kind of evading tax. They put stuff in, I don't know what they want to call them, what do they call them? The nonprofit organizations and stuff like that. They all kind of open their own personal nonprofit organization and then donate to it and I don't know, stuff like that. So they're good at keeping their money from being taxed. So what you see is a lot of this like financial, gymnastics, going on. And here's everybody else kind of like dependent on these big old corporations. And so the idea was, tax these super rich people, maybe even corporations to some degree, a lot, and then kind of take that money to some degree and kind of, to some degree, like redistribute it, so the government would tax it and then take that money and maybe do stuff like welfare or food stamps, what's that other stuff, Medicaid, Medicare, stuff like that, and so that's kind of the general premise, tax these people a lot, kind of redistribute the wealth to the less wealthy people who are kind of under the upper hand in this situation. But the thing is, hold on one second. So the thing is, a lot of that money that's taken from these big corporations and stuff is not actually put toward helping people. A lot of that money is just taken and spent frivolously on who knows what. Senator Rand Paul, he does this thing, or he's been doing this thing, where he's just kind of pulled up some random expenditures that are like kind of ridiculous. He's been doing it like annually, just random stuff. It's like, what are they spending money on? It's crazy. So that whole idea of taxing the wealthy and corporations and whatnot and kind of redistributing it, it's not really happening that way. And then I guess maybe the extreme end of that would be the universal basic income, which people are discussing. And that would be like a direct redistribution of wealth. You got Andrew Yang talking about that, running for president on the Democratic side right now. I actually like Andrew Yang because he's a very intelligent person. He's like a forward thinker. He's anticipating, change is coming, like artificial intelligence. Like I said, we're already in a situation where so many people depend on these big corporations. Once they start replacing jobs with artificial intelligence, people are gonna have no jobs whatsoever. So what are they gonna do? Starve? You know what I mean? It's just not practical. So this goes into the whole idea of socialism. Some people will start talking about, okay, well, we just need this and that to make sure everybody has the basic necessities of life covered. And it's like, yeah, that's definitely something we need to be considering, because a lot of people are going to be out of work. It's just going to happen with artificial intelligence and automation, coming through. It's already happening. I worked at a place, and there was a lot of machines run off artificial intelligence, and so we have to anticipate that. And I think universal basic income is just one plausible solution, or at least thinking in the right direction. Okay, and so people are probably gonna be talking about, like, okay, so what do we do when that happens? Like, how are people gonna get the basic necessities of life? You need shelter, you need food, water, electricity, clothes, whatever else you might need, basic stuff. So people are probably like, what are we gonna do? And people might be thinking something like, okay, well, we don't have any jobs. I mean, let's do some type of socialistic thing. And that word is very taboo, I would say, because we've seen socialistic economies just crash. I am totally against socialism, except in a very, 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 very small degree, and that's basically to cover the basic necessities of life. I do not think I think the government already is kind of like a corporation. It's kind of like has an income, which is the taxes that come in, but it's also borrowing money. That's a different story. But so with that income, it takes the income and turns it into a product of some sort that should profit the general populace, and help them to be more productive and whatnot, and be able to live and survive. It's already like this organization. You might call it like a corporate structure of some sort. And we already have these type of programs where money's coming in, the wealth redistribution. There's welfare programs, this and that. There's housing vouchers. There's scholarship. There's Pell Grants, stuff like that. We have a lot of stuff like that already. And I just think those basic programs to cover the basic necessities of life for the less wealthy people are probably going to expand. But the whole thing is, right now, a lot of that money that's being taken from these big corporations is not even being put toward helping those people. That's why there's still a lot of homeless people, people who are struggling, because a lot of that money is just not going in the right place. You know what I mean? And that's the whole purpose of taxation to begin with. It's like money's supposed to go into a fund, and decisions are supposed to be made to spend it on things that are actually going to help the general public, to help the constituents of the politicians. And what I see a lot of is politicians who are more self-interested, things like that, and they have lobbyist friends who are like, convincing them to pass certain laws, or to spend certain money on this, buy something from them, whatever it might be. And so there's a lot of corruption, in politics. And instead of money going toward helping the less wealthy people, a lot of it's going into politicians' own pockets or their friends' pockets or whatever it might be. And that's a very bad situation. That's like a fundamental problem right there. So people have to be aware of that, first of all, and pay attention to who is spending money on what's going on, like what your local representative is doing, things like that. You have to pay attention to that, because after all, they are taking your money and then doing something with it. It's your money. They're supposed to be doing things that benefit you with your money, benefit the general populace. And so people have to stay on top of that, like, really hard. But generally speaking, here we are already in like a corporate, dominated, economic environment. And then it's about to be even, more so with, artificial intelligence and automation, taking over. And a lot of people are going to be out of jobs. So what people are going to be asking, like, the government, they're like, hey, like, help us out here. And I mean, that whole function of, taxing the wealthy and redistributing it is going to be, it's probably just going to expand. But like I said, the thing is that right now it's not even working properly, so it has to be worked out. And I think that's just to cover the basic necessities of life. I am for sure not saying government should take over any corporations or anything like that. We've already seen that. That leads to failure because the government could barely function as it is right now. You know what I mean? It's almost like we're like the stockholders, and then stockholders vote, for like the board of directors and maybe even the CEO and stuff like that. It's kind of like what we are. We're the constituents. We vote for these politicians to be on the board of directors, you might say, of this, governmental corporation, whatever you want to call it, and they're supposed to make good decisions to run this business, to give us the best, situation, the best outcome, the best profits, whatever it is. Just like, stockholders expect, the people running the company to do what's best for them, for their profits, for their gains, for their dividends, whatever it might be. And so yeah, if we look at the government as it is, like kind of like a corporation, it's already like corrupt. It's just imagine a corporation that like had corrupt CEO, corrupt board of directors, and like instead of putting money back into the company and making more profit, keeping the thing running, the whole corporate structure functional and whatnot. Just imagine all these corrupt people running this company, were pocketing all that money. It's that company wouldn't last. And that's almost what we see with the government right now. It's like, what the heck? I see some companies and I admire their business model and their corporate structure, the functionality of them. And I think, the U.S. government, if we look at it in that way, we can, take some inspiration from what we see at various other companies and, kind of hopefully make this thing work a little bit better, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, the whole point is that it pays dividends to the constituents, help them out. It's supposed to work for us, that's the whole point of this governmental, corporation, whatever you want to call it. Right now, you got plenty of corrupt people in there. That's just what it is. And it has to be dealt with, you know what I'm saying? We depend on them to pass laws, to make choices with like billions, even trillions of dollars. It's honestly more crucial that we make sure that stays, good than it is for maybe like a singular corporation, that a lot of people depend on. They go like the government's like the main important thing that everybody should pay attention to and make sure it's running properly. You know what I mean? It's like the mother corporation of all these other ones, if that makes sense. It's the mother organization, you call it. And so with this automation coming, people are definitely going to be like, what do? We don't have any jobs. They're going to look to the government, but the functionality of the government has to be working properly, for any type of, universal basic income or making sure the basics of life are covered for people. There's so many homeless people in America already. Like right now, there's tons of homeless people. And people just stay homeless, been homeless for a long time. I think it's like 50 million plus. You know what I mean? That's a lot. And then there's, these super mega rich billionaires and politicians that are somehow almost billionaires themselves and putting money, tax dollars into their best friends' pockets and stuff like that. It's a corrupt organizational structure, dude. It's corrupt, and people have to keep an eye on it. If you don't, you're going to have a problem. You have a major problem. And it's coming. Like, we're already dependent on these corporations. When this automation comes, a lot of people are going to be out of jobs, dude. And you already got people working like 3-4 jobs trying to keep a roof over their head in some cases. You know what I mean? Automation comes, you won't even be able to get a job. It's going to be cheaper to pay a robot to upkeep a robot than it is for human labor. A lot of people are going to be out of jobs. It's just supply and demand. So this is going to have to be, remedied. It's going to have to be dealt with, And like I said, Andrew Yang is already thinking about this and talking about it. I'm glad he's on that Democratic debate stage bringing these things up while all these other politicians are like, oh, they're talking about stupid stuff. Like, what are y'all even talking about? Andrew Yang, on the Democratic debate stage, I like Bernie Sanders because he's talking about stuff like universal health care is just basic. That's one step in this direction. You got Andrew Yang talking about like universal basic income, automation's coming, people are going to be out of jobs and this and that. He anticipates what's really coming. And, That's a thinker. That's what we need. We need thinkers, people who are actually competent enough to, it's just like any corporation. If a corporation, or I guess the people who manage the corporation, were not anticipating like changes in the market, they would fall under. You know what I mean? Good CEOs, good management structures, anticipate what's coming and adjust accordingly. It's the same thing with the government. That's what the freak politicians need to be doing. The politicians need to be competent enough to anticipate what's coming and adjust accordingly. It's very simple, very simple. And because of that, I'm actually thinking about running for some type of congressional seat or something like that, just to at least bring this up and talk about it more, bring it to the forefront, because this is super relevant, right now. It's coming right now. And I'm kind of a lazy guy, to be honest. I only do things usually out of necessity, if it's not just something I just enjoy doing. So this right here, it's kind of out of necessity. Like I could be just living my life, but I see this being a major issue very soon. And I'm like, not enough people are talking about it, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking about getting up on some type of debate stage or some sort and talking about it. This right here, this is something, I'm talking about it. So spread awareness, talk about this stuff. It's coming. Anticipate it, and vote for people who are competent enough to anticipate it themselves and adjust accordingly. It's about to be major changes, dude. There's been major changes already happening. It's about to be even more extreme than it's been. A lot of people are gonna be out of jobs. They're going to be people starving. You know what I mean? If changes are not made. You see what I'm saying? And right now it's not functional, so changes right now need to be made. So it is what it is. So with that being said, I hope this is helpful. This is like my beginning, I guess, of I don't know. At least we're starting a conversation here, right? So whether or not I run for any type of congressional seat or not, I might. At least we're doing this right now. And you can talk about it more, spread awareness. You can share this video. I don't care. Do what you people do. And that being said, I just know that's something that needs to be talked about and needs to be considered with what we're going through right now as a civilization. This is gonna be a global thing with automation coming and a lot of changes coming, new technology and stuff, and the economy. It has to be adjusted so that people are taken care of. That's the whole point of the economy. The last thing we want is a couple billionaires that have everything and everybody else being slaves to them. You know what I mean? That's almost what it is in a lot of cases right now. You got people working for minimum wage. You know what I mean? You got to work like 3 jobs to keep a roof over their head. It's ridiculous. So got to remedy this whole situation. And so this is hopefully going to spark more conversations and will be the beginning of that. So that being said, I thank you guys for listening, and keep an eye out. I might be up in one of these congressional races pretty soon. We'll see. That being said, I'm out. Stay safe and keep your eyes open. Anticipate what's coming and prepare and adjust accordingly. I'm out.